The following program has been rated GE by the Kenya Film Classification Board. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Hello viewer, and welcome to today's episode of Chungu Jamii. My name is Anne Morimi and I am very happy to be with you today. It's been a cold season, but we're getting out of it. The sun is coming out and we're so happy to at least be able to experience some warmth. You know, it's winter in Kenya, if I may say so. But nevertheless, I hope that you're well and that you are looking forward to today's conversation. With me in studio is a lady, and she's very, we're going to be having a very interesting topic. She is very skilled in her area of expertise, and I want to give her this opportunity to introduce herself. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anne. Hey viewer, my name is Grace Karaoke. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I also do mental health counseling. Anything relationship, I'm the person to come to, and I'm very glad to be here. Looking forward for us to, talking about what the topic is today.
Yes. So today's topic is to do with relationships, and it's depression in marriage. So, we get into marriage with a lot of eagerness, a lot of joy, a lot of excitement, not just individually, but even the families of the man and the woman, because it's usually marriage is such a dramatic thing in Africa. By the time you pay your bride price, by the time you visit the girl or the boy, but sometimes what happens is that things don't work out, and so depression sets in. You find one of the spouses is depressed. Could be because of the marriage or not, and we just want to look at how that affects the marriage. So, it's a good thing, but where depression is not very positive, but it is here with us.
Yes.
It's a current reality, and let's talk a little bit about your training. I like you said that you're a marriage and family therapist.
Right.
And what I like about that is you have been trained to be that.
Yes.
Yeah, so you bring in a lot of expertise, not just in terms of experience, but also in terms of knowledge.
Yes.
So what is it that led you to go in that direction of studying
marriage and family?
Yeah.
It's really something that was triggered in me as a child, because I come into a family where I'm the firstborn, and my parents were really strong Christians. And they were the 70s Christians, and that movement, the Tukutendereza movement. So they were very committed to the Lord, and so my confusion as a child is why they had so many conflicts and they had a lot of verbal fights. So I remember at 12 saying to myself, when I grow up, I want to understand why people act the way they do, because I couldn't figure out why God, who is perfect and who led my parents to be married, why he is not helping their marriage to be happy. And so in that process, then I am not happy as a child, and I had a lot of questions and a lot of contradictions in my mind. In fact, one of them was, does God even really recognize us, the offspring of these two people who are not able to make their marriage work? And so, of course, now over time, I found my answers, and that is why now, at the age of 30, I entered my first psychology class.
Wow, that's so interesting. Because it's very rare that you find a person who is so connected in their line. You see, when I asked you that, I thought that maybe you were in a different profession. And then you took time out. Or maybe something happened that made you change your profession. But for you, when you were growing up, you noticed that problem. And then that problem is what encouraged you to decide which you're going to get into. And at 30, you got into it, and now you're practicing. So it's so interesting to see that from a very young age, you can be able to be very clear about the kind of future that you have and the kind of change or solution that you want to offer to the world. And you see, I'm saying that because a lot of times we tend to ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then it's like you're asking, but you're also dismissing. You just know, you want to be an air hostess, you want to be a psychologist, but we all know that when you're a teenager, come to young adulthood, come to, when you're in your 30s, all this will get scrambled up and the end result will be something totally different. But for you, it's been very, very consistent, and that is awesome, you know. And so the thing is, so we're talking about depression in marriage, and what I'm wondering is, can you be depressed, but you're not depressed because of your marriage? You're depressed about other things, and then it affects your marriage. Or does depression always have got to arise in the marriage itself?
Now, and that is a very good question, because when we think about the symptoms of depression, we are always looking at life experience. So when we do our assessment, our diagnostics, we want to find out whether the depression was triggered by the marriage or the depression was always there, and then the stress of being in a marriage now has triggered it to come to the point where it's affecting the marriage. So it can be both ends, that you were depressed even before you came to the marriage, and now the marriage has triggered the overflow of it. Now, I want to identify two types of depression so that people understand. Because if I asked you, are you depressed? Obviously, people will say, no, I'm not.
Yeah, people always never want to accept that is a possibility. I don't know whether it is denial or it is just thinking so highly of yourself that it cannot happen to me, but people are always like, no, I'm not.
Yes, it's both. Because when you think about depression, depression signifies a low level of being able to manage your life. So a weakness. So if I am depressed, that means I'm weak. If I'm depressed, that means I'm mimi ni mwenda wazimu, you know, the other thing. So we need to understand that depression is a real disease, like the disease we have it's a lifestyle disease, like the ones we have with what is it called, hypertension, diabetes and stuff like that. Even ulcers, it's a lifestyle disease, you know, because it is caused by excessive stress. Excessive stress and lack of good self-care. So when we think about depression, there is what we call major depressive disorder. And major depressive disorder is where you have these episodes of maybe something happens, you can't manage it, you go right into depression. And then once you get treatment, you are okay, but it happens in cycles.
So you keep going up and down. Because life is such that it always brings you these challenges. So sometimes when they come, you go down. Then when they ease, you come up. So that it's a lifestyle. Your life is always like this.
So you have these cycles. And most of the times, I do tell people when they come to me, let us look at your life history. And we begin to ask, the symptoms you're having right now, have they been there before? Do you remember the first time you had a depressive episode? We call them episodes. Now, major depression is really, you go really down and you can't function at all. And that lasts maybe for anywhere between 2 weeks and maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then you get help and all the stressor goes down and you are able to come back up and you are able to function again. Then we have something we call dysthemia. And dysthemia is low level of depression throughout your life. And this one,
forever there.
This one is usually triggered by childhood experiences. You know, anything that happened to you when you were younger that caused you to question your worth, your safety. There wasn't, either you grew up in a home where there was a lot of chaos, or one of your parents was depressed, or you had to walk on eggshells so that you don't create any chaos. And these are the children who begin to develop a sense of I'm not good enough, I'm not a good person. Because really depression is a negative view of yourself and the world. You see? So, and then what happens is that when you have these negative views, you usually feel like you are a victim of circumstances. Things just happen to you. You see, you have no control. And these four things, it's important for people to understand this. If you are feeling unloved and unacceptable, if you are feeling unsafe because either there is a lot of criticism on you as a person, if you're feeling you do not have any control over your life, people make choices for you, you can't speak up for yourself. And then the third thing, if you feel you are not competent, no matter what I try, I fail. You see, those four things, if you have grown up feeling that way, then you develop that low level of depression, because you don't, you feel, most of the times you feel helpless and hopeless.
Yes.
And then you have a lot of regrets because your decision making is not well.
Yes.
Because if your mind is not able to be clear and more logical than emotional, then what happens? You make a lot of decisions reactively. You get married reactively. You are running away from home. Then you get a baby because you are lonely in the marriage. Or you didn't even think, I'm not ready to have a baby, I need to get on a family planning. Or maybe your husband did not allow you. So there are so many things. Same thing with men. So the same thing, maybe you grew up with a father who was not there, who was abusive to your parents or to your mother. Who was very harsh with you. So all these things, expectations that are too high because you are a boy child and you never met those expectations. Those are situations that could create a depressive mood that stays with you throughout your life. And so now when you get into marriage,
it's chronic, basically.
Yes, it's chronic. And so when you get into marriage, no matter how well you make it in life, you feel like you're an imposter. Like this is not, people tell you how great you are, but you don't feel it, neither do you acknowledge it, even though you can see it. Because the template that you are living out of, it was a template of you're not competent, you're not lovable, or you're not loved and acceptable, you're not safe, and that you have no control over your life.
And so even when you succeed as a person, you don't, it's like you don't think you deserve it. And so you feel, you know, there's this term that is becoming a bit more common, imposter syndrome. It's like you feel, yes, it's me who is the MD of this company, but deep down you're like, hey, you know, you're sure you
don't believe
you feel
yourself.
so, you don't believe yourself.
It's like you are in a dream.
It's like you're in a dream, and yet when you look at the facts, you're successful. But somehow inside yourself, you sort of don't believe it. And it's very interesting that you have said that imposter syndrome is like beneath it is depression. You know, and you know what? Even when you look at our society now, and we're seeing a lot of suicide, I always have a friend who I always tell her that I wish people could learn how to say that. Instead of saying somebody committed suicide, they could say they succumbed to depression. Because I always feel, feel like people come up and make it look as though suicide is a one-time event. And then they don't want to accept or be aware of the fact that for you to get there, it has been a journey. And it's been a long journey that has failed. So basically, the way you would succumb to cancer and die is the same way you would succumb to suicide, to depression. And then you become suicidal.
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, because I find everybody says that they committed suicide. I'm like, oh, it's better to say, you know, they've been having depression for a long time and they succumbed to it. Because I feel like that's a better picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it also makes people know that if you see somebody who's depressed, the end result can be that. So please take it seriously. Before it gets there, let's start dealing with it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so now here you are, and you've been like that, and then you got married, whether you got married out of pressure, and you're in a marriage. We're talking about depression and how it affects marriage. So are there signs that you can be able to identify? You see, the kind of depression that comes because of circumstances, it's very easy to pinpoint that maybe I lost my job and I'm feeling down. I'm feeling down, well, I'm still sending CVs, but when I get my job, I'm up again. You see, that kind of depression is easy to identify, easy to pinpoint. Even me as a spouse, I'll be able to know, oh, my husband is feeling down, it's because of this and this. And I can care for them or lead them to the right direction. But this other one that has been there all your life, how will your spouse even know that it is there?
Okay. Now, number one, remember, depression is a negative view of self and life. So you have ever had a friend who is very needy emotionally. They have sob stories. Everything is about so-and-so is bad, so-and-so is bad. They never forgive anybody. They hold on to a lot of negative emotions. They are very reactive to anything that doesn't go their way. They withdraw. If mukikosana, if you have any disagreement, immediately they cut you off. People who tend to block, you know, these days it's I block you and I block you, you know, with social media. You know, so you want to look at these small behaviors or tendencies and cycles of negativity.
Yes.
The person who is at work, there is always somebody who is against them.
Yeah.
You see, they're at home, once you have gotten married, if they start to see you doing things that don't please them, instead of communicating, they are passive aggressive.
Yeah.
They keep quiet, they won't talk to you, they won't give you what is due you. They withhold affection, conversation, presence, and you can see those things even in the dating process.
Yeah.
Because the time when things don't go well, you see them, shutting down.
See them, just that maybe you're so in love,
yes,
you sort of ignore those red flags.
Yes.
But so now in marriage, they become so apparent.
Yeah. And also in marriage, you will see that now when they are in that depressive state, they will change in the way they interact even with the children.
Okay.
They want to spend a lot of time in bed. They don't want to do a lot of things because they are feeling low energy. Now, the symptoms of depression, maybe we should say that.
Look at that,
Number
in
one,
case somebody is going through that,
yes.
if you spot this, and is it spotting all of them? You'll tell us how many of those. Yeah. Okay.
Now, according to the diagnostic manual for mental health, they are, number one, sadness that is intense for at least 2 weeks. So you are crying a lot.
Okay.
Then number two, low energy. You don't have motivation. You are fatigued. Number three, changes in your sleep patterns and diet. Okay. So you are either eating too much or you are sleeping too much, or you are eating too little and you are not sleeping well.
Yes.
So that, and then withdrawal and isolation, withdrawing from social gatherings, wanting to stay by themselves. Yes. I hear all the time people who come home and they straight go to their room, and you are a parent and you go to your room and close the door. Anger outbursts, that's another one. Irritation, frustration, snapping at people, that's another one. Then motivation, low motivation, you don't want to do anything. Yes. Number three, continuing, you also have issues with focus and concentration. Yes. So you are not able to focus at work, you are daydreaming, you're finding yourself not alert. Yes. And then you are unable to do the tasks that you are supposed to do. Yeah. And then also we have what we call something like anhedonia, where you don't have any interest in anything. Things that used to give you pleasure, you don't want them anymore. You withdraw from your ministry at church, you withdraw from going golfing or whatever you like to do. Okay. So you begin to stay away. Then behaviorally, people who suddenly start drinking. People who suddenly just do some other behaviors which are coping mechanisms because of the depression that they are feeling. So they are trying to find some way to up or to run away from this distress that they are feeling. Yes. And then we have regret and guilt. Then we have hopelessness and helplessness. Okay. And then, of course, now suicide. Yeah. Whether it is saying that I have no reason to be alive, my life is in shambles, I have just wasted my life or whatever. When they begin to talk like that, when they begin to give away things, when they begin to really kind of, you see somebody is depressed and you see all this, and then suddenly they have some joy there and they are giving out things and they are talking about. The
end is near.
Yeah, you need to be aware of that, because then at that point you need to give help. Now, when you have more than five of these symptoms, and they are affecting the areas of family and relationships, the areas of self-care, and the areas of your occupation. Yeah. If those three areas of your life, those three domains of your life are being affected by these symptoms, then you are in trouble. Yeah. And at that point, you're going to be given the diagnosis for depression. Now, I want also to say there is also another depression, the depression that is triggered by situations. Yes. That one, we normally call it adjustment disorder with depressive symptoms. Okay. So, the way that we usually, like a death, let's say somebody has just died, your spouse has just died, your child has just died. Yes. What you have in the beginning is acute stress disorder, because you are highly stressed because of this. Yes. If it lasts more than 6 months, then we call it now adjustment disorder with depressive symptoms.
You're not being able to adjust to that reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also, we also have, like now bereavement is part of the, because when you think about grief, there is, in the grief process, there is the depressive state of grief.
It's something that you go through,
yes,
but you go through and come out of,
yes,
not that you remain there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the adjustment, because all of us are built and created to be able to bounce back, resilience. Yeah. So we are stretched, and if you release that, once the stressor has reduced, then you usually go back to some sort of normalcy.
Yes.
COVID, that's what it did to us.
Yes.
And then over time, we found our new normal.
Exactly.
We adjusted, and now we are advancing.
Exactly.
This morning I asked again as I was looking for a mask, yani imekuwa ndio maisha yetu.
We
will never be able to walk around without a mask. You see.
Yeah.
So, but we have adjusted and we have advanced in that.
Yes.
So when the depression is triggered by something, then we are able to do that. Now in marriage, this adjustment disorder with depressive symptoms can also happen.
Yeah.
Number one, I was expecting these things when I got married.
Exactly.
And 2 or 3 months into the marriage, something happened that now my expectations are not being met.
Yes.
The thing that we all say, my husband or my wife changed.
Yeah.
When did this happen? Oh, I think the 3rd month. Why? Because there's many things. Because family
when
life.
The person alingia Bob. When you get that person now as to be your spouse, all those nice things you are doing, maybe you're like, now the person is my wife. Why should I continue or whatever?
And I want to say this. Depression in marriage generally can be triggered by disappointment and betrayal.
Yes.
Those two things. Because when there is disappointment and when there is betrayal, we go through a grief process.
Yes, we do.
Loss and grief. It has nothing to do with death, but it has something to do with death of expectation.
Death of a dream.
Yes.
Death of what you envisioned.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what? It's good you clarified earlier. Let me go back a little.
Yeah.
That if you have any 5 of those, because when you talked about those things, in my mind I was wondering, is there anybody who is not depressed in that case?
Yes.
Because those are things that happen in life. But I like that you've been very specific. You've talked about if you have 5 of those symptoms, and they have been there for a long time.
Yeah.
So, the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes it's also important. Self-care also involves self-diagnosis.
Yes.
Being able to sit with yourself, call yourself to a meeting, and just, listen to yourself, and you're like, you know what, I'm not well.
Yeah.
Basically, this is a pattern that I'm seeing in my life that is not quite normal. Because you don't always have to wait for help to come.
Yeah.
Because I find that also, when you wait for people to help you and you're the one who's depressed, it will take longer. Because people always give you a lot of benefit of the doubt, which is okay. But I think that we should also grow to the point where you can actually bring yourself to the conclusion that something is off and I need to seek help.
Yes.
We don't have to wait for it to get too advanced.
Yeah.
So I like the symptoms that you've given, and if there's a viewer who is listening in, if you're finding these things, please just seek help.
Yes.
Do not feel stigmatized. Do not feel discouraged. Because I want to ask you something else about the commonness. What do you have an idea of the statistics in terms of what percentage of the population can be depressed, is depressed? So that, because I find that sometimes when people know the numbers, they feel more encouraged or not.
Yes. I think even though I don't want to be quoted that I'm correct, but what I have seen in the past is that according to WHO, that I think out of every 10 people, I think they said something like either 6 or I think about 6 or 4, either 4 to 6 people are living with mental,
about 40 to 60%.
Yes, with mental
disorders.
And I think I almost want to say 70% of the population are struggling in one way or another with 2 mood disorders, and that is depression and anxiety. And these 2 sometimes go together. Anxiety is the fear of I don't have control over my life, and I am afraid of the future. And depression is basically, I am sad about my past. I have regrets, I have guilt, I have shame, about what my life is.
Okay.
You see,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
so when you think about depression and anxiety, sometimes they go together.
Yeah, because you look back and you're sad,
Yes.
and therefore you look forward and you wonder, will it be different?
Yes.
So you see, you can
You
be
feel
depressed
stuck.
and then you can be anxious at the same time.
At the same time, because depression also triggers anxiety,
Yeah.
and anxiety also triggers depression, because now anxiety is I have no solutions. And so one of the symptoms of depression is helplessness.
Yes.
And hopelessness. So if I feel I have no solutions, I become anxious, panicky, and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and then I become depressed because I'm feeling stuck.
Okay, I get it. So they're very interrelated, and it tends to be a vicious cycle.
It is.
I also want to ask something. Is there a genetic predisposition?
Yes.
And also, because I also want to say this. Have you noticed, I don't know whether you have or haven't, are there some people who go through so much in life, but they're not put down? I mean, they keep like bouncing back. You find, oh, you were born in poverty. Oh, your mother died. Oh, but you're always like, what is it about them that we can copy?
Right. I will tell you this. It's the perception.
Okay.
There is a story I usually tell. There were two gentlemen who were in love, and the girls, broke up with them.
Okay.
And they both felt the same emotion. Oh, poor me, they have left me. So one of them decided that I cannot live without her.
Yeah.
I cannot see my life without her. And he jumped over the bridge and he died.
Yeah.
The other one decided, you know what, I have lost her. What a life I had with her. I had so much hope with her.
Yeah.
And then he said, I am going to make lemons. Yeah. Out of these lemons, I'm going to make lemonade. And he started writing the blues. So he used his pain.
Yes.
To go into his what we might call
career industry.
Or even destiny.
Yeah.
So it really depends on your outlook on life.
Yeah.
Now, what I tell people all the time is that even when you come to me because something went wrong, you need to embrace the grief process.
Okay.
Every time we lose something, we are going through grief.
Yeah.
So you need to embrace it. You are human. You are not superhuman. Don't think that you won't get over it. You will, but it depends on what you're telling yourself. The story you're telling yourself in your mind is what is going to it is going to lead you either to see this as an opportunity to grow, or it is going to be, it's the end.
Yes.
And in marriage, now let's come back to depression in marriage.
Yes.
After I have talked about the losses, now you can see, if you are in a marriage where you came in, it's until death do us part.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, you go through a process of deep disappointment and betrayal.
Yeah.
Why will you not go into depression?
You will, because basically you're grieving
Yes.
about
The
the
loss.
kind of picture you had and the reality.
Yes.
And well, a lot of times I also say that people don't either know who to talk to,
Yes.
or they talk to the wrong person.
Yes.
And so that lack of guidance also makes it worse, because you could talk to somebody and they tell you something that will help you make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the thing. With marriage, we do need to understand marriage goes through processes and seasons. And so the season of marriage when you come together is the season of excitement, dream stage of marriage.
Yes.
Everything is perfect. And we are very connected. We have interest for each other. We are learning. And so it's very emotionally, it is very uplifting and charged, and it's the good emotions.
Yes.
Now, when you get into the next stage of marriage, which is the drama stage of marriage, that's where now depression will be triggered. Because this is the part where we are trying to cleave. Because these are two people who are coming with all kinds of things.
Yes.
And life experience, family experience, expectation, personal, what we call it, personality differences.
Yes.
And then when we begin to come together and we begin to do this, it's like we do. You know, because now
you're surprised, you're scared, you didn't expect it, couldn't see it coming. Yes.
And this time of conflict is a time of disillusionment because we are trying to put two lives together. So what happens normally?
I need to cut you short.
Sure.
Because we need to take a short break.
Yes.
Viewer, keep it right here. We'll be right back. We've talked about the dream stage and the drama stage. So keep it here. Thank you. Okay, let's have
This is our world,
No problem.
so dream, I know, and drama.
our community, and our society. It's all happening at Chungu cha Jamii. In this place, we talk about parenting, we talk about marriage, we talk about relationships, we talk about dating. We go to the prisons and find out how life is over there. We talk about the village, what happens down there in our slums. What exactly is happening back in our schools? What is happening with the people that we know as our husbands and our brothers? What is happening with addiction also in our society? We offer solutions. We bring in experts, we bring in psychologists to tell us more on how to handle our problems. Come, let us share together. Let's get round the pot, have some soup, and talk about the issues in our community.
Ni vipaji poetry loans. So ukiniona niko on run pale Tao BS nikiharakisha kukuja GBS, it's because poetry loans is back. And this time it's back to inform you, to transform you, to educate you and inspire you.
Najiamini, ndo maana sometimes me who laugh at my failures ndo ni motivate success. Ni Dante Spy the poet hapa hivi. Tuko vipaji poetry lounge live at GBS.
Best Chef na Spice ya Kari no wanda alikuwa mkali. Vipaji Poetry Lounge
at all social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, tuko everywhere. Vipaji Poetry Lounge, GBS. Stay tuned.
Everywhere, GBS.
Okay. All right, welcome back, viewer. This is Chungu cha Jamii, and today we are talking about depression in marriage and trying to understand where it comes from as well as how to get out of it. So we've talked about the dream stage, the drama stage, and you're saying that after the drama stage comes the next stage, and it could go into two ways. You call it deepening.
Yes, yes. You can find it called many things, but the one that I use is deepening.
Okay.
What happens is finally,
Yes.
I accept that my husband is like that. He will never put the socks where they are supposed to go, and he will never remove the cup from the table.
Yeah.
And so I begin to now look more to him as a person and the value he brings into my life.
Yeah.
And the same thing for the man. He begins to embrace his wife for who she is.
Okay.
And then what happens is that now we work with the differences rather than trying to change each other. During the drama stage, that's where the problem is, because we are constantly trying to change the other person.
Yes.
But in the deepening stage, what you are doing is now you are looking, that's where we say that you are developing a deeper intimacy with each other. That's when into me you see. You are interested now to say, Mama so and so, hey, hii miaka 15, and now I know that even if even if Jesus comes and speaks to you, you will never change that particular thing that
which
you know,
I would love
which
you to
irritates me. You see, and so we embrace. And I think of Abigail in the Bible, the lady who had and what did he say? Forgive my husband; he is a fool.
Yeah, she knew. And she was not even upset about it. She just went to apologize quickly on his behalf.
Yes.
She didn't go looking for him to try and correct him and tell him, oh, no, this is David. He's going to be the king. He's the king. It should not be. She was like,
Yeah.
Wewe nakujua na kuelewa.
Wacha mimi nifanye nini? So if men and women in marriage can do that, we can avert a lot of this personal, because we go when we experience the loss and the grief within the marriage.
Yes.
What happens? And I'm not talking about death. I'm again talking about
expectation.
The death of expectations. What happens is that if we do not deal with that, then we are frenemies. We have friends who are enemies. And so
I don't think I've had that term before. We are frenemies.
So we
Friend
know,
enemies.
because we know we do very well in some things, and in some things we don't do very well. We never allow that to come together.
Okay.
So that now we can work with the differences, but to accentuate each other's strength. Now, I want to say something about now the causes of depression in a marriage.
Okay.
Just to kind of help people understand this. So number one is when, personally, if I have a very high need for emotional connection, and my husband doesn't have that high need, that in itself will cause a lot of chaos in the family, where we are constantly fighting verbally, and sometimes it can even go into physical, but also it creates a lack of intimacy in other areas of our lives. Social, I don't want to go anywhere with you because we are not in good terms. Number two, I live a different life from you. I have my friends and you have yours, you figure it out. Or then financially we can't connect, because again, there is this feeling of he doesn't want too much talking, because you get so emotional, and her, she's saying, but you neglect me because I need you, you are my all in all. So we need to understand what are your emotional needs when it comes to marriage, because if you don't get them met by your spouse, you go into depression. So you need to learn how to expand your networks, your social networks. And this is where we normally say, this whole thing of soulmates, I think it gives us an idea that this person is my everything. And nobody can ever be that to you. It's too much expectation on yourself and even on the other person. So clarify that. Then number two, what you want to do is also to look at the way that you guys communicate. The stories we tell ourselves in our heads about our spouses, which is what we call love maps. So if I look at my spouse and I say he is selfish, he is that, he's all these negative things I say about him or her, then that will create now the depressed marriage.
Exactly.
Because the depressed marriage has no joy. Remember, depression is about negative view of life and of ourselves and others.
Exactly.
So if the way I see my spouse, the way I judge them, I judge their intentions, I come up with a lot of assumptions in my head. And because we are not intimate, so we are not intimately communicating. We have sex, but that is not intimacy. That's just an act. But then intimacy means that into me you see and you are interested. And I will say this, in order for you to reduce the depression in your marriage, number one, you need to have interest in your partner. Be curious. When you do this thing, instead of me always criticizing what you do, let me seek to understand why you do it. And when they come to therapy, that's what I ask. So what are these things you want them to change? And they say. And then I will ask the person, so tell me, why is this so important? What I learn is that some of these things are connected to what they saw at home.
Exactly.
So it is conditioning.
Conditioning,
You see, so if I don't take time to be interested in why do you repeat this behavior over and over again?
The same thing.
Because you see what we say. We usually say, if you loved me,
you would.
You would change this. But then even me, I need to ask myself, if I loved him, wouldn't I want to know why they keep repeating this thing?
Exactly.
You see, but
it goes
normally,
both ways.
But normally what we do is we label each other. You are uncaring, you are selfish, and so we will never learn the other person, and we go now into those depressive states in the marriage.
Wow. I love the way you're putting it. It's so practical
Yeah.
and so real and so easy to relate with,
Yeah.
you know, because when you talk to people, and even when I myself have been in certain situations when I felt exactly like that, and I'm like, oh, so those are things that I could change, you
Yes.
know. And I like what you've said about emotional connection, the fact that you should not put so much responsibility on this
One
one
person,
person,
yeah.
because anyway, the world is full of so many people.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's also good to just engage and connect with them
Yes,
also, you know.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that those are very good lessons
Yeah,
and take homes,
right there.
and very good avenues through which you can be able to see the causes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that instability is
Right.
what brings about the depression. And the funny thing is, how is it? Okay. When there's depression in a marriage, is it always one person who's depressed, or is it both?
Now, I will say this. What happens in a marriage, when the one person is depressed, the other one is anxious. So the depression in one person can trigger anxiety in the other one.
Okay.
Or it could be the two of them, the one who is now the symptom, the one who has the symptoms
Of depression. Yes.
may trigger now the symptoms of depression in the other one. So for instance, you have two introverts who are married,
Yes.
and then one of them gets into depression because of one thing or the other. And we do know mostly introverts, when they are in that depressed state, they don't talk. So they will actually do all those most of those symptoms that I identified.
Yes.
So what is going to happen? They
isolate the other party.
They isolate the other
Yeah.
party, and because the other party is also, introverted,
yeah.
they will go into they will just pick the isolation and stay with it. You see, until there is really a time when this is too much.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't talked to me. You are not having sex with me. You are not taking care of the kids. What's going on?
Yeah.
Now, if your partner is not introverted, they are more extroverted, what you will hear is a lot of criticism on yourself. So I want to say this. If you have a spouse who is in depression, please don't criticize them, because that only adds
To the depression.
they are
doesn't
feeling.
help.
Just remember, they are down. Don't
They are
kick
down,
them.
yeah.
So what you want to say is that, Han, I would like you to really explain to me how you feel.
Yeah.
And then you have to be careful how you respond. So there are one or two things that you can do. Do validation. Validation is where you say, I hear you. I can imagine how difficult it is for you. And then go into some sort of problem solving and say to that person, I am here and I really want to help you. Can you tell me, what can I do? In order so brainstorm with them because that way you also give them the opportunity to be in charge of their treatment. Most of the times, if you do that, then the depressed person isn't going to feel judged, because that's the biggest mistake we make.
Yeah, we judge them, and then we make it worse.
Yes.
They're already down, we step on them.
Yes.
Which is not helpful at all.
So the thing that I would like couples to understand is that the thing that you need to do is to validate how they are feeling and affirm them and tell them, I know we will get out of this, and I'm right here with you. And these are the things that I think we can do. So if you are a spouse who has a depressed wife or a husband, first of all, go for a session with a therapist, so that you explain, and then they can give you tips in your specific situation. They can help you. But validating them and affirming them, and then number 3, offering to be in a process of problem solving with them. Don't tell them what to do.
No.
Now, this is the other thing. You might find that your spouse is not willing to work with you. When it becomes to the point where they are talking about suicide, that one, don't look for them to tell you what to do. That one, you need to take them you need to find a way.
It's an emergency.
It's an
like,
emergency.
Deal with it as an emergency.
Yeah, just take them to a psychiatrist and have them evaluated and given the treatment that they need before now they go for therapy. Because now when somebody has gotten into a suicide attempt, at that point, they need
professional help.
You
can't offer that.
And it's more about their
chemicals.
regulating of their chemicals. So low levels of certain chemicals that help us with thinking and cognition and also how we behave. So they are either low or they are reacting. And the medications that we get from a psychiatrist, they regulate our mood so that we can be able to do talk therapy. And again, I want to say here, if you have major depression and you have these cycles of major depression, because usually with dysthemia, the low-lying, it's a mild to moderate depression.
Yes.
Because when we do diagnosis for depression, it's either mild, moderate, or severe. Now, the severe one, that one you need to get both medical therapy and medicine therapy and talk therapy.
Okay.
And also, the talk therapy includes talking to a counselor and the counselor helping you to identify behaviors that you need to unlearn and behaviors you need to bring on, which is self-care. Part of it is self-care and stress management. So, but when we are talking about now major depression, these are like cycles. So you go through a major depression, and then you are okay. Now, we also need to understand that there is also bipolar. And bipolar is what we call manic depression. And manic depression is where you have very high highs and you have very low lows. And the highs are usually categorized by self-destructive behaviors. A lot of energy, you are not sleeping, maybe to the extent of spending too much money where you are maxing your credit cards. Sometimes you can even start to steal, you know, getting into drug addictions, sexual stuff. You know, you are just doing things without control. You have no control. And then after you have done that, you go poof. And part of that is, again, realizing what I have done, the shame, and then you go now into depression. So that one with bipolar, absolutely psychiatric help
is needed.
Yeah, so that they can have the chemical balance from the medication, and then they can work with a behavioral therapist and also a talk therapist to really deal with trauma. Because most of our mental illness is rooted in trauma. Childhood, especially childhood and trauma. early teenagehood and early adulthood.
And you know what? I think that because of that, we should be very concerned and very caring. Because you see, it is external. It is a trauma that happened externally. Because sometimes people take it so personally. My spouse is not talking to me. They have isolated me. There's no conversation. There's no that extra step of what could have happened to them to make them get to this stage, which is really a high level of love. To be very honest.
Very, very, very.
And most people don't seem to get there. They struggle because they're always just hitting the person, hitting the person. So you see, when it has happened in your childhood and in your teenagehood, it was most likely by people in the families of origin or people outside the family of origin who are really the people to blame. This one is more like a victim. And then now they are acting out. So that level of understanding, I think, is also very beneficial because it helps you not to take it personally and to also understand. So I'm very happy with this kind of discussion because even if you may not be in such a situation, you're learning and you can be able to spot somebody and understand deeper, you know. So I like that you've already gone to the solutions even before I got there, which is good because you don't want to feel stuck in a rut. And I'm so happy to hear that there are a lot of solutions. Now, you've worked in the US and you've worked in Kenya. What can you say about our behavior-seeking patterns when it comes to therapy?
Well, I will say this. Therapy all over the world is stigmatized a lot. So even I usually say the US is like 30 years ahead of us. And we are getting there. We are catching up. But even in the US, there was a lot of stigma, and especially with people of African descent. They tend to feel that you know, wazungu, you know, even here I have recently had somebody say that they came to therapy and said, me, I've always thought therapy is a muzungu thing. And but they found and you know, it was a man who said that, and he said, wow, I wish I knew this before I would have averted a lot of the things that I've gone through. So the behaviorally, I would say that in the US, maybe I would say their percentages of people who are quick to seek therapy is higher and than it is here in Kenya. But since I have been home, I started practicing here in 2014.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, it's like we are at
80%.
Yeah,
that's
people are
great.
very calling me, and part of that is because of all the awareness that is going on, especially with now I love the fact that the media stations, every day if you turn on any of the stations, they are talking about relational health and mental health. And so a lot of people are understanding that this is a real thing, there is no shame to it, and it doesn't mean you are weak. And I want to say to everyone, the things that people come to me here in Kenya with are the same things that people came to me when I was in the US, whether it was Asians, whether it was Koreans, whether it was Chinese, whether it was African American, Hispanics, white people. I mean, the Europeans, it's the same. And even now, because of COVID, a lot of our services now are online. And what happened is that sometimes when you get onto these online platforms where the viewership is all over the world. I'm getting calls from people from all over the world because they saw me on a program somewhere.
Exactly.
And they kind of say, oh my goodness, so I can talk to this lady. She can understand where I am coming from. And so I think because of awareness, people are more willing to seek help because we are seeing mental health is a huge, huge problem in our society. Every time we hear about children who are being done stuff we cannot even imagine. When we are hearing people who are doing things to their own families, we know we cannot continue to put ourselves in denial that this is not happening. And I want to say again, even with the divorce rate, which is now almost at 49% in Kenya.
49?
Yeah, which it has been, also within the world, it has been 50-50. For every 2 marriages, one will end in separation and divorce.
And why are we so surprised when we see it happening?
I know, so what we are saying is that most of the times you will find that it's not infidelity that breaks the family. Neither is it money like we used to think.
Yes, we used to think that for a long time.
But now I'm finding out it's not those two things. It is actually the unresolved conflict within the marriage that is, because now this depressive state, the marriages are in so much depression. So now because we have more, we are feeling much more, what do we say, empowered to walk away from marriages that are not happy. We are no longer in the era where you've humiliated.
I know.
Now people are feeling like
you can walk away.
Both men and women.
Yes.
And so what is happening now is that because of the unresolved issues over time, people are walking away from marriages when their children are, between the ages of 8 and going forward. Because now the thing that was keeping us together and we did so well is the parenting.
Yes.
And then, of course, now if I am not getting, if our marriage is depressed, then I find a colleague who is giving me attention and all that. Then without planning,
without
things
it being
begin
wanting
to happen.
to be, things happen. So when you see those things, understand that they're like fruits of symptoms of a deeper disease. Another thing, again, people are never willing to think of infidelity that way. It's always, how could you do it? It's not what led to it, And of course, understanding that, of course, you don't want to blame other people because you are responsible for your own behavior. But I like that approach, that looking back and seeing the patterns, So I'm very happy to hear that people are seeking therapy more because it's very, very helpful, And you know what? It doesn't have to only happen if you're in a marriage. You could have seen this pattern. You could be seeing these patterns in your dating cycle. Just approach help. Give us your contacts. Like, are you on social media? What is the name of your...
Yes, so I have a website. It's called, it's www.gracekaraoke.co. .ke.
Okay.
And on that, I have my IG, which is at GK Nderito.
Okay, okay.
And then I have my Facebook is Grace Karaoke _Nderito or hyphen Nderito.
Yes.
And of course now on my website you will find my YouTube channel. It's called Live by Design with Grace Karaoke, talking about what you said, that it looks like I started thinking about my life a long time. That's why I call it Live by Design.
Live by Design.
Yeah, that you can design the kind of life you want if you are self-aware. And I think I started being self-aware a long time ago.
Yes.
And so people can reach me through that, and they can also, watch my YouTube channel. I have a lot of content there on relationships, mental health. In fact, I have spoken about depression in marriage.
Excellent. We're going to be rushing there after this to be able to get more resources, because this is a very wide topic. But when I listen to you, I can see that there's solutions out there. There's solutions. You don't have to feel trapped. You don't have to feel like that is the way your life has to be for the rest of it,
Right.
You can be able to get out of it, not necessarily through divorce, but by healing.
Yes.
Yeah, by healing.
Yes.
So I'm happy that you're there to be able to offer these solutions.
Yes.
And one of the things that also is a challenge sometimes is the affordability of therapy.
Oh, yes, yes.
Is it only for the rich?
I know. That's a big issue, but I want people to know if you have any kind of medical insurance, and even NHIF, they will pay for your therapy. You need to reach out to them. If you have NHIF, reach out to them and see what the process is. Sometimes we therapists have to be paneled with them. So we have to do the application to do that. But right now what I do, if I'm not paneled, which I'm only able to do Minette, but if I'm not paneled, what I do is you pay out of pocket and then they will reimburse you. But also I want to say that there are a lot of subsidized, and me, myself, because this is a ministry for me as well, so people should feel free to reach out, and then we can work. I always tell them I can work with them where they are. I mean, I have worked with young ladies who are trying to get out of abusive relationships, or even developing their own sense of self. And we have done that. As long, I always say, I'm not going to give you for free. I might give you 1 or 2, but I want you to pay for it because you will feel more in control of the process rather than, because when you think about that 500 shillings I have to put together to see Grace, it will have to have. So you come to me and you say, Grace, this is what I want to process today, because you have paid for it. And you have control over that. But when I give it for free, you'll
even take it for granted.
Yeah, you take it for granted.
Not too seriously.
Yeah.
There's that aspect of value.
Yes.
When you pay for something, you value it.
Yeah. But I agree that mental health counseling is quite expensive. And so there are other places where they offer it for free. Like the sit-up churches, they have free counseling, and those counselors are trained. And also I think there are organizations like Mental Health 360. There are organizations that offer,
But also it is worth it.
Oh yes.
It is so worth it to pay for it, because the consequences of being mentally healthy far outweigh the amount of you're going to pay, So it is absolutely something that is absolutely worth it. And so sometimes you feel like the things that are worth it are only the physical things that you see, but the things that we don't see, they are even more valuable. And they tend to affect the things that we end up seeing. So I'm all for reaching out to therapists, and I'm all for paying for these services, because it is also a form of self-care and self-love.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been
so great to have you.
Yes.
And we look forward to more sessions with you, whether it's on your YouTube channel or even coming to your clinic. And viewer, thank you also for joining. If you have any questions, please remember that we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're also on YouTube. The channel is GBS TV Africa. Also, you can send us a message on 21144 in case you want some follow-up help on this. And we'll be able to connect you with Grace, and then you can be able to take it up from there. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.